Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a new edition of the EKN Debrief. It is Rob Howden alongside Nate Dean as we get set to go with episode 110. It is Wednesday, April the 5th. Of course, the EKN Debrief, our post-race report podcast. And of course, wrapping things up for the 2023 Superkarts USA Pro Tour opener, the WinterNationals at Orlando Kart Center. Nate and I were there last week. Lots to talk about because it was a heck of a weekend for sure. Some tremendous racing, a little bit of controversy as well. But nonetheless, we're going to jump into this thing right now. And today's show presented by Sodi Racing USA. It's a multi-time world champion, and it's a Superkarts USA Super Nationals winner. It is Sodikart. And starting in 2023, the Sodi brand has found a new home here in the United States. Sodi Racing USA is the new exclusive importer of the Sodikart chassis line under the karting distribution banner. The French manufacturer Sodikart is a leader within the karting industry, offering a wide range of products and services. The Sodi Racing chassis line offers product in classes from mini karts to KZ, all based on years of development and championship seasons around the world. Visit Sodi-Racing-USA.com to learn more about the Sodikart chassis or call 954-634-5111 to become part of the Sodi Racing USA network today. Sodikart, the world leader in the karting industry. All right, Nate, let's jump into this thing. Again, we were down there all weekend long. It was a fantastic weekend to get things kind of underway. But for so many of us, like you and I, the first time we've been to Orlando Karting Center, everybody else essentially been there for a month. So it was kind of a weird vibe when we got there. I think everybody was ready to go racing SCUSA style, but was also kind of getting ready to get the heck out of there. They've been there for so long.
Yeah, I think people looking forward to the Pro Tour, but mainly after the event, looking forward to a different track. Just didn't seem like there was a lot of hype for the event. It just seemed like it was almost like another club race where you're at the same track for the third weekend in a row. So there wasn't a lot of hype for that new track that there would have been maybe for USPKS or the Florida Winter Tour. But new tracks to come in the future for all of the major national series. So I'm guessing people will be looking forward to that.
Yeah, and that's how I kind of felt on Friday. It felt like Friday, everybody had been there for so long that there just really wasn't any vibe on Friday. Everybody's like, yeah, okay, we're back on track again. You know, they were there Thursday testing, and they've been there all month. So once they finally started racing on Saturday morning with the SCUSA crew was there, different race directors, just different feel. I think that's kind of the feel I got. Now, again, we'll do a quick overview. The race was March the 31st to April the 2nd, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I mentioned it was at Orlando Kart Center, which, as Nate said, was also home to the opening round of the USPKS series a couple of weeks before, the final round of the Florida Winter Tour for Rock Cup USA. So definitely a busy facility. Of course, as we know, the WinterNationals, the start of the Pro Tour, was initially scheduled to be at NOLA Motorsports Park in New Orleans on the weekend, but contract negotiations between the two parties kind of fell apart for some reason, and SCUSA electing to move the race to Orlando. It is the first and second round of a 6-round championship. Of course, the Winter Nationals, Spring Nationals, and Summer Nationals. 14th season of this great program. Started all back in 2010. We were there for that one. Looking forward to seeing them continue on. But again, 2010 was when it started. Nate, I'll let you kind of come back in with the weather. The bottom line is the weather, although warm, hot actually, was really good.
Yeah, high 80s, low 90s throughout the weekend. Pretty humid. No rain or threat of it throughout the weekend. So that was good for the winter in Florida.
Yeah, right.
Dry, but made for some interesting track conditions that I'm sure we'll talk about later in the shifter categories with how the rubber was laying down and the heat. It was just an interesting track condition.
Yeah, it was. With some of the dust, and there's a concrete plant near there, so the dust kind of blows up and driving off quite a bit throughout the weekend, putting dirt all over the track. So track conditions were really interesting, greasy and no grip is what we heard from a lot of people. If we jump into by the numbers, as we always do, last year's Winter Nationals, the opening round of the Pro Tour, 240 entries. At NOLA Motorsports, 226 is what they ended up with, down by 14, about a 6% decrease. But interesting across the board, Nate, when I kind of went in and plugged in all the numbers, there were 4 classes of the 9 that actually went up, and then the other 5 classes, actually 4 classes went down. One class was exactly the same. Micro Swift 24 last year, 24 this year. Mini Swift, 43 last year, 42 this year. So really, when it came to cadet racing, they only went down one. The big drop was X30 Junior that went from 30 down to 20, a drop of 10, and then KA100 Senior, which was 43 last year, only 28 this year, a drop of 15. So, Senior went up, both KA classes. The KA Masters class went up. The Junior class went up a little bit. Master Shifter was up a bit. So it was weird that there was some ebbs and flows in the categories.
Yeah, it's a bit weird. I'm not really sure what you can put your finger on to try and say what that is, whether it be, this is the third weekend we've been at Orlando Kart Center. Maybe other people are looking at different series to run for a full season for 2023. Don't really know. But yeah, like you said, the X30 Junior category losing a fair bit is X30 racing in general seems to be at a bit of a plateau right now, not really gaining, not really losing a ton. But the KA Senior was the interesting one with 43 down to 28, with how well that category was doing at USPKS. A bit of a shocker to find only 28 entries in that class.
Agreed. All told, in the shifter kart category last year, 26 drivers, 20 in the pro class, 6 in masters. They got an increase of 3, essentially another 50% increase in master, going to 9 drivers in the master class, but then down 4 in pro shifter. Although, as we will get into this, a very high quality pro shifter class in terms of the drivers. So it was a lot of fun to watch those guys kind of go at it. So again, all told, about a 6% decrease, but still 226 drivers to start off the pro tour at the WinterNationals. So decent numbers. Anytime you're over 200, it's a major national event. So I'm sure Scusa would have rather have seen 240 or 250, but I think in the end with 226, considering the fact that everybody had been at Orlando for a month, I don't think that that's going to be looked at as a major negative. Now, again, we'll see what happens when we go west to Utah. That'll be the different situation. How many drivers from the west that maybe didn't come all the way to Florida are going to come to Utah, and vice versa? How many of the eastern drivers that we saw in Florida, because Florida always does, amp up a number of drivers at any one of the races in that area. How many of those guys are going to decide to run the entire tour? That's one thing, of course, we will be looking for. Into the break now, though. First break in the action. This is, again, episode number 110 of the EKN Debrief. When we get back, Nate and I'll dive into the Paddock Pass. Made in the USA. It's not just a statement, it's the mission at Factory Karts of America. Led by 4-time Supernats champion Billy Musgrave, Factory Karts manufactures their frames completely in-house at the Riverside, California facility. Built and designed from the ground up specifically for the American karting market, Factory Karts brings new innovations and solutions that are long overdue. Factory Karts bring together the highest quality materials to produce a high-performance, long-lasting kart that has been designed and perfected from 3 years of development, with a focus for a big push across North America in 2023. No other karting manufacturer stands behind its product like Factory Karts does, providing a 2-year warranty on all their frames. Do you remember when American made meant innovative, original, stronger, faster, and just plain better? Well, American Made is back. Contact Factory Karts today to join the American Made movement. Learn more by visiting factorykarts.com or email Billy anytime at info@factorykarts.com. There's a new hot button name in American safety equipment: Stilo USA. Every product with Stilo is focused on safety, comfort, and function. Stilo USA is happy to provide you with the proper safety apparel to keep you protected on the track, and their karting lineup is second to none. The ST5 KRT karting helmet is available for $599. Manufactured using a lightweight and extremely strong composite material, the KRT provides an excellent fit and comfort level due to its dual density interior foam lining, and it's equipped with a symmetrical visor that offers excellent vision and an effortless central visor locking system. The ST5 CMR standard was developed jointly by the FIA Institute and Snell Memorial Foundation to ensure safer and lighter weight helmets for the younger karters. Drivers rave about the superior comfort levels, lightweight construction, and the unparalleled field of vision. The perfect youth helmet is available for $549. Stilo didn't stop with their helmets either. The newly developed Carbon Curva Rib Protector is unlike any on the market, with its form-fitting solution to offer superior protection. Head to stilohelmets.com to review these and many more products to keep you safe on the track. Stilo, any competition, one helmet. Welcome back to episode number 110 of the EKN Debrief. Again, Wednesday, April the 5th. Rob Howden alongside Nate Dean as we dive into the WinterNationals, the opening round of the Superkarts USA Pro Tour. We were at Orlando Kart Center last weekend. Time to jump into the Paddock Pass, where we'll talk about stuff that really happened paddock-wise, maybe some new people in the paddock, whatever it may be. This edition presented by Comet Kart Sales. History, success, family. These are the three words that describe Comet Kart Sales, one of the longest tenured karting businesses in the U.S. The family-owned operation is located just outside of Indianapolis and has provided karts, parts, and services for thousands of racers in their near 6 decades of business. Their online store features everything you need, and they are continually adding new parts to their product line. Make sure you head to CometKartSales.com or call them at 317-462-3413 to be part of the Comet Kart Sales family today. All right, Nate, let's jump into the Paddock Pass here. A bunch of stuff happening as you and I kind of worked our way through the pit area, chatting with a bunch of people. I think first and foremost for me was just, not sure whether or not he was going to be coming back for the season yet, but good to see Joe Turney back for the start of the Pro Tour with Chad Dawkin Racing.
Yeah, and so soon after him going back to Europe and winning in Valencia for the FIA European Karting Championship. So it was good to see him after that. Had a very strong run in the Winter Series on that Kart Republic and DAP chassis, splitting that between the 2 weekends. So if he does choose to stay and do a full campaign in the Pro Tour, then he will definitely be a championship favorite. Little
tease on us too, right? He was running that DAP chassis on Friday, then bounced back to the Kart Republic on Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah, not sure about that. He ran the DAP chassis the first weekend of the Winter Series and then went back to Kart Republic for the second weekend. So not too sure about that. I'll have to probably ask him in Utah.
Yeah, I never got a chance to ask him. I was going to ask about that, but I didn't think about it. One of the things that was cool to see, we haven't seen it for quite a while. We saw it, of course, out at the Challenge of the Americas, but was the Sodi Kart program, and all the stuff that we've done with EKN through Superkarts USA and all the SuperNationals we've covered. We go back to some of the great days with Anthony Abbas running up front in that pro shifter class, the KZICC category. But good to see Sodi Kart coming back, working with PK Sports. Terry Germanovich was there. Sodi Kart making a really good effort now. They've really kind of landed and they're going to town. They're really focused on really, building roots back into the U.S. market.
Yeah, and Harley Keeble doing a great job at showcasing their brand up front in X30 Senior throughout the weekend. I think he turned a lot of heads, maybe not the end of the day he would have wanted on Saturday, but we'll talk about that later when we talk about X30 Senior. But a really good showing for Sodi Kart at the Pro Tour.
Yeah, agreed. They had Josh Bergman right up there in the micro category as well. And we're going to see, I think, a lot more of Sodi Kart throughout the year at different programs. Of course, as we reported on eKarting News, they're working with PK Sports as kind of their East Coast program, right? East Coast race team. They work with the Karting Collective out west, and there's more programs coming online. They're going to be working with Sodi Kart, so look for that. I'll jump ahead of the one I had in the notes here. Let's first talk about the fact that it was at the end of a long run at the Orlando Kart Center. A full month, as we have said, folks, for teams that were there. Coming out of the February races, locking in there for the USPKS opener, for the Florida Winter Tour finale, then a weekend off, and then right back into the SCUSA WinterNationals. A slight break right now until they head to USPKS. I know I talked to Mike Rawlson from Rawlson Performance Group. They literally packed everything up on Sunday, drove on Monday and Tuesday, and have actually already parked the trailer. Their hauler's already parked at Speed Sports, where USPKS will be at the end of April. So I think everybody, Nate, probably looking forward to a couple of weeks off to maybe take a breather, right? Go home, see the family, try to bank some sleep maybe too.
Yeah, for sure. Especially even if you're on the road for that long, let alone being at the same track or going with the same flight back to Orlando every other weekend or so. But yeah, I think everyone's going to take these breaks as they come through. They kind of happen sporadically throughout the season. So having one this early on, especially with all the Winter Tour and Winter Series running between all series. I think everyone will quite enjoy this.
Yeah, kind of a little bit of a breather right now, just a little break in the action before they get back at it. So we'll cap off this edition of the Paddock Pass, and again, as I said, presented today by Comet Kart Sales. There was a lot of chatter throughout the paddock, and especially after Sunday when Billy Musgrave kind of smoked everybody there in Pro Shifter. A lot of chatter about the IME SSE 175 versus the KZ power plant in that Pro Shifter category. We can go back and look and kind of, break it all down and about the SCUSA, moving from stock Honda into the IME SSE 175 that didn't get the traction they hoped for. The move was then to open up to allow the KZ engines in. Both engines, of course, then legal running SCUSA Pro Shifter. But in the offseason, and I got to dive more into this because I really wasn't up on it till I got there, was SCUSA had changed the rules a little bit to kind of open up the SSE 175 a little, allow more work to be done on the engine to, I think, kind of make it a little more attractive for teams. Maybe the guys that already had SSE 175s, hey, instead of buying a KZ, you can just do some top end work or whatever it may be on the engine. But man, I don't know how many people you talked to, but a lot of people were fired up as Musgrave was the only guy on the 175 all weekend.
Yeah, and I think we can you said they opened it up a bit, and some could argue maybe a bit too much. I'm not trying to discredit Billy at all. He's an amazing driver. What him and Factory Kart have done, they've made some amazing chassis, have an amazing team behind them, but at the same time, having that big of a gap in a field with U.S. champions, world champions, I'm guessing, like we talk about in the sports car world all the time, there's going to be a bit of BOP getting thrown the way of the IME.
Yeah, and what do you do now, right? The interesting thing is they've opened up Pandora's box, so you can't literally tell them, hey, we you already have this engine, you can't kind of detune it. It's probably going to be having to pound some weight on it or whatever it may be. Now, whether that they even decide to do that, I don't know. This particular racetrack obviously played really well for the 175 and that kind of bottom end torque that it was initially promoted as to have, that big grunt off the bottom. Well, there's a lot of hairpins there where we watched it, Nate, throughout the weekend. They'd get into the corner and Billy would just get that kudos again to the chassis. He had the factory kart dialed in. He'd get it rotated, and that thing would just squirt out of the corners. Maybe kind of with him, and he would gain, at least a length coming out of a lot of the corners.
Yeah, obviously, the IME having a bit of an advantage at such a tight and technical circuit. It's probably it's going to be the slowest speed track we go to on the Pro Tour. So it's going to be really interesting when we head the way of, if nothing's done about it, once we go to Utah and Newcastle, where it's more top speed and medium speed at Newcastle, where we can see if the KZs can keep up.
Yeah, agreed. I think that's a great point. And I think that's something we're obviously going to have to dive more into this. A lot of stuff is already happening. Literally, just as I was getting ready to come on, I saw that the Stars Championship has announced that the IME SSE 175, which they run alongside their KZ class and their KZ Stars class, is going to go by the 2021 spec. So they're not going to be able to use the new spec engine. So it's going to be really interesting. It's something that we'll look at EKN. So make sure to to keep an eye out for that. We'll make some phone calls and start talking to some people and get a little more into depth with what's happening with the KZ versus 175 program. All right, into our second commercial break of this show, this 110th episode of the Debrief. When we get back, it's time to jump into the race report. Stay with us. More to come here on the EKN Radio Network. CRG is one of the most iconic brands in karting, and we're primed and ready for the 2022 season with new material and a never-ending focus on winning. CRG Nordam is the North American distributor for all CRG products. Based outside of Houston, Texas, CRG Nordam supports CRG dealers across the continent, reaching every corner of North America. The CRG KT5 is our new chassis for tag and shifter racing, and it's been designed specifically for the U.S. market. The KT5 features 30mm construction with a 32mm front loop to increase front grip. CRG's new VEN 13 brake system is cutting-edge technology with a master cylinder that allows for pressure regulation within the system. Drivers can customize brake pressure to their own requirements to improve feel and to avoid brake lockup. The kart is finished with new KG 507, 508 bodywork that has refined aerodynamics and reduced weight. For cadet drivers, the 2022 CRG Black Mirror is already logging positive results to start the new season. This chassis will be making big waves in 2022. Longtime CRG drivers will be happy to know that the CRG Road Rebel, the standard in quality and performance, is still available. With 4-cycle racing enjoying consistent growth in North America, CRG's FS4 chassis is the ideal choice for racers in Briggs & Stratton competition. From pure racing to karting entertainment, many tracks, both indoor and outdoor, have made the switch to the CRG Centurion rental kart line. 5 different models for both gas-powered or electric engines can fit any track's needs for a new rental kart fleet. CRG Nordam has a full inventory of rental karts available for new and existing facilities. For more information on the CRG product line, head to www.kartcrg.com, and to inquire about a North American dealer near you, please email us at info@kartcrg-nordam.com. Cometic Gasket is a leading worldwide supplier of gaskets and engine sealing solutions for karting, automotive performance, power sports, original equipment, and the remanufactured engine industries. Cometic karting gaskets are available as OE replacement top-end kits or as individual gaskets and seals. Just like competitive karters, Cometic can operate on the fly and has the unique capability to customize any gasket to meet specific engine requirements and clearances. All of Cometic's fiber materials are asbestos-free and do not require any additional sealants. Viton oil ring cylinder head seals are used in each 2-cycle kit, and Cometic's 4-cycle engine kits feature only the most advanced multi-layer steel head gaskets. Cometic can tailor to engine builder-specific needs through bulk ordering and packaging flexibility. Cometic gaskets are must-haves for championship-winning teams across multiple disciplines of both professional and amateur motorsports. Cometic Gasket, sealing championships since 1989. Welcome back to the EKN Radio Network. Rob Howden alongside Nate Dean as we are wrapping up our coverage from the Superkarts USA WinterNationals, the opening round of the Pro Tour at the Orlando Kart Center. This is the Debrief podcast. Of course, kind of taking all the stuff we did race report-wise, putting it into podcast form. Now the time to jump into the race report. We have 9 categories to go through here, so it's going to take a little time, but we'll work our way through it. Today's race report presented by the Skip Barber Racing School. Are you looking at the next step in racing? Go from karts to cars with the Skip Barber Racing School. Skip Barber alumni are champions in every motorsports series, including Formula One, NASCAR, IMSA, and IndyCar. Get behind the wheel of a Skip Barber Formula 4 car that features a 160 horsepower turbocharged engine. Our highly structured and competitive Skip Barber Formula Race Series is the perfect platform to start your career so you can fulfill your dream of becoming a champion. With equalized race cars and a focus on driver development, your driving skills will determine if you end up in victory lane. Learn more about the Skip Barber Racing School at skipbarber.com or call 866-932-1949. All right, Nate, let's start with the X30 Senior category presented by Speed Concepts Racing. I'll blast out the headline, and then we can kind of go to work on it. Here's your headline. Turney and Morgado split pro victories. So the bottom line out of the gate, Joe Turney, as you had said earlier, Nate, was very, very quick at the winter series, running with Chad Dawkin Racing, Kart Republic, coming off the CIK FIA European Championship win at Valencia. I think, obviously, momentum, speed, skill, material, qualifies P1 and wins the pre-final as well. He looked really good coming out of the gate.
Yeah, for someone who's arguably one of the best karting drivers in the world in that senior category, you're not going to expect anything less from him. Had the momentum that has been rolled over from the winter series and anything he's run over in Europe before then, just had the speed right out of the gate. Not really. It's hard with how close this class is, of course, with the level of competition you have with all the American champions, with some of the Europeans coming over, with Morgado and Ramos, and to still just have this not a comfortable gap, but still just be comfortable in the kart, be able to put it on that front row once again. Just a really good showing for Turney.
There was some great racing in the main event. Norberg was able to get the lead out, I think, at the start, if I'm not mistaken. Kind of rolled around the outside and held the spot early. Turney came back by. There was some really good mid-race action as well. Turney was able to get back, kind of built the gap a little bit. It was a lot of fun to watch. Norberg was closing at the end, but ever so slightly. You wonder, of course, how much Turney was kind of holding back a bit. Did he have more in the tank to be able to drop the hammer on it? But with those guys battling, I thought one of the cool factors was seeing Harley Keeble work his way up so well. You had mentioned when we were talking about Superkarts and Sodi Racing USA and PK Sports in the Paddock Pass that the 16-year-old British driver, man, super impressive. He's going to be running KZ, I believe, for them this year. But man, ended up working his way into third spot, ran third, and man, we were calling the action, very impressive. But man, I remember, I think you actually came and told us when we were in the booth that he actually didn't make weight. And man, to think about you come over your first race against big dogs like last year's, world champion Matheus Morgado, who end up third, but to just miss on weight, that's gutting.
Yeah, I was there at the scales doing some content for our social pages. And of course, Orlando doesn't just weigh weight to the pound. They go into decimal places for that. So on his initial scale, he came up just a half a pound light, rescaled, and then obviously redid the scale, zeroed that out, and then went back on, and he was a pound and a half light.
Oh, okay.
So it didn't really help his out. And his Superkart team was, doing all the instructions, try and stand in different places, fill your lungs with air, everything they could, and going a bit over you get one chance to rescale after it's zeroed again, which is another topic for another day. But you cannot discredit his run in that final half a pound or a pound and a half would not have made a difference of putting him really far back. He's still an amazing driver and a lot to come from him.
Yeah, of course. When we get into Sunday, you'll hear that he came back as well. So it was Turney with the win. Norberg chased him, but wasn't able to get. So it was first and second there. Matheus Morgado, who was fourth on the racetrack, getting elevated up to third because he had caught and reeled in both Brandon Carr first, and then Hayden Jones as well to go to P3. I think a really good run for Hayden Jones as well in the Trinity Karting Group. Kart Republic machine. Of course, he ran with Norberg last year at Rollison, so was kind of leading the way himself here and looked really good. I thought he was in the kind of hunt the entire time. And actually, was it Saturday where he had the issue in qualifying and was last and worked his way up whatever in the pre-final, then attacked from the pre-final, right? He actually came from dead last in the pre-final to finish fourth, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so. Yeah, I think that was Sunday where him and Ryan both had a bit of issues. The number 1 and the number 2 plates were out early, not out early. Hayden was out early in qualifying, but Ryan managed to get his chain back on.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. And we didn't bring that. Ryan had the trouble with the chain as well. But anyways, yeah, Brandon Carr as well, one of the rookie drivers, had a good job. He ends up working his way into fifth. So all told, Turney, Norberg, Morgado, Jones, and Carr, top 5 in Saturday's action in X30 Senior. Hard charger in that one was Caleb Gaffera. He seemed like he had just a rough weekend all told. Was involved in an incident at one point. He started 37th, worked his way up to, I think, 9th or 10th with a couple of penalties. He ended up 8th in the end, a 29 position improvement for Caleb Gaffera, running with Trinity Karting Group on the Kart Republic as well. So a good run to get him back into the top 10. Sunday was where things got really interesting because we didn't talk at all, of course, Saturday about anybody from Speed Concepts Racing. And they got good drivers. We're talking about Austin Garrison, Aiden Ingrata, Paulie Massimino. They were like kind of the tail end of the top 10 on Saturday. But Nate, whatever they did overnight, they stormed back on Sunday and really dominated qualifying.
Yeah, there was talk from Ingrata that tent had found something, and obviously everyone's going to find a little bit of something throughout Saturday and Sunday just to try and evolve. But when I think all of them were in the top 5 or so in qualifying, it's like, okay, they actually found something with Austin going P1 and Grata was there. Massimino was quick as well. So Speed's Concepts were really a contender on Sunday.
Yeah, I'm scrolling back. I think they went 1, 2, 3. They did.
They did.
Garrison, Ingrata, Massimino 1, 2, 3 in qualifying for Speed Concepts Racing. It didn't play out by the end of the day, but Ingrata would be able to work up and was the winner in the pre-final. I believe Garrison might have been second, as the two Burrell Art PSL drivers were right there as well, and that's Morgado and Diego Ramos. They were right there in the main event, though, and I think this is kind of the end of this amazing run through 3 months of competition and kind of dialing things in. Mateus Morgado, who of course is the reigning world champion, was signed to run with PSL Karting over here in the U.S. This year, along with his good friend Diego Ramos. Morgado was just the guy to beat. Early issue for Joe Turney. He gets hammered by, I can't remember who it was, but got drilled in turn number 9 and essentially was out of the race. Got the thing back going again and actually stormed back to finish in the 18th spot. Same thing happened for Ryan Norberg. He got roughed up big time coming out of turn number 9. I want to say broke a sprocket or something like that happened to the sprocket, I believe. So those are the two top guys from Saturday are out. But in their absence, Mateus Morgado, Nate, really stepped up. He's the world champion, and they just keep getting better and better with that Burrell Art chassis, the single speed kart, right? We know how good they are, how fast they are in the gearbox class, but man, they're figuring stuff out for sure with the single speed.
Yeah, like you said, in the shifter classes, Maureen Kremers has done a very good job marketing that kart and that brand. But in the single speed, they've been struggling a little bit in the past couple of years. They've had qualifying and short run pace. We saw that in the Friday happy hour with Morgado going fastest in X30 Senior, but we've seen that throughout the winter of Burrell having that one lap pace, like with Ramos going on pole in the winter series, but they haven't really been able to sustain that throughout a race distance. But finally, at a major event, at a Pro Tour event, they did get a win in the Florida Winter Tour with Morgado, but Morgado finally being able to have that breakthrough for Burrell in the X30 category in Pro Tour competition. His teammate Diego Ramos really helping him out throughout that midpoint of the race, with him running second and really defending from Keeble, who was very, very quick throughout the entire race in the scale line. Him saying, like, if I could have gotten up there, I would have ran away with it. He had a ton of pace in that Sodi kart. But again, bringing things back, a really good run from Morgado to hold off the pack as they were starting to catch him towards the end of that final.
And the funny thing is, too, again, the battle up front, you talked about it. Great job for Ramos to hold him off. Harley Keeble, kudos to Keeble, right, for being able to get back after the day before, able to get finally by and finishes in second. The fast lap actually was Joe Turney. He turned the quickest lap with a 54.1, but Keeble was a 54.2. Keeble's fast lap, as you said, was 0.2 faster than that of Morgado. So there was probably an opportunity, like Keeble said, had he got by earlier, to potentially reel in Morgado to go for the win. But it ended up being Morgado, Keeble, and Ramos on the podium. Ingrata, who led early, held on for the 4th spot, and Alessandro De Tullio, not actually the hard charger. We'll get to that in a second. Not actually the hard charger. Is actually De Tullio up 25 spots. Started 30th. He goes to P5. Tremendous run for Alessandro De Tullio, who is with PSL Karting and Prime Power Team, moving over to the Burrell. But actually the driver, and I'll update my notes here, was actually Blake Nash. He started back in 36th, drove up to 9th. Top 10 finish for Blake Nash from 36th to 9th. A good run, because to be honest, Nash, we figured, I think, Nate, probably be in the fight up front, just wasn't really anywhere in the middle of the battle. Anything we were talking about top 5-wise, had some trouble here and there, but I think good way to kind of wrap up what was a rough weekend for Blake to be able to come up into the top 10.
Yeah, Blake's had a fairly quiet, I'll say, almost a bridesmaid type start of 2023. He's had pace at a lot of the events he's gone to on that National Motorsports EOS of his, but he's never been able to really fight up front. But I feel like sometime throughout 2023, he'll be able to get on a major national podium and just spark that confidence a bit more, and he'll definitely be a front runner consistently by the end of the year.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. He's got the speed down. Again, he's learning like crazy, right? Learned a ton racing against Norberg at Homestead for the Winter Series. So there's a lot to learn there. And again, he's kind of stepping things up. Championship-wise, Morgado with a 55-point lead, leaving the WinterNationals over Joe Turney and Diego Ramos. So a good start to the season, as we said, for Mateus Morgado. Let's move down to the Pro Shifter category presented by PSL Karting. Here's your headline. Formal holds off Musgrave, but Californian storms back on Sunday. So nothing to do with the engine deals on that. Formal came out of the gate, qualifies on pole, wins the pre-final, gets the whole shot on Musgrave. Musgrave started behind him P3. Nate, to be honest, Musgrave, it was 24 laps of little constant pressure. Musgrave trying to find a way by Formal, but again, Formal's a veteran driver. It's going to be hard to shake him for sure. But we had two of the drivers we've been talking about for the last decade going head to head for a race win to start off the season, and in the end, it was Formal who took that victory.
Yeah, Danny doing an excellent job on Saturday on that RPG Cosmic. Him taking the win at USPKS a couple of weeks earlier, the first shifter win for OTK in the US soil on quite a while. So him backing up that form again on Saturday was really the quickest cart. Like you said, really hard to shake Formal, especially in the past couple of races he's done with between USPKS and being in the midfield of a GTD battle at Sebring. There's nothing you can really do to get under Formal's skin. So yeah,
agreed.
Really, really good run for him.
So Musgrave indeed did not make his way to the podium as he got a jump start penalty. This was a video online, kind of jumped off the line, stopped, and then continued. I was surprised that because he stopped, I was kind of surprised. I'm not sure what the actual rule is, but regardless, he got a jump start penalty. That actually moved Martin Kremers up into second. He was also the hard charger. He started back in 15th and drove his way up to third, ended up in second spot after having a flat tire in the pre-final. So Martin Kremers on the PSL Karting Bureau Alert ends up in second. AJ Myers was there in third. Musgrave's penalty drops him down to fourth. And Kyle Wick ended up in the fifth spot. Sunday was all Billy Musgrave. Figured it out, dialed the chassis in a little bit for the changing conditions, the conditions which we'll get to. Drivers were super slippery. I literally talked to AJ Myers at one point. I think when Nate, when you and I were leaving the one day, and he said that he if it had rained, he thought he would have had better grip. That's how tough it was with these drivers. It was so slippery out there, so greasy. But Musgrave, Nate, had things absolutely flat handled on Sunday. Qualifies pole, wins the pre-final, was challenged very briefly at the start of the opening lap. They tried to kind of dive inside him in turn number 4 and 5, the first couple of laps. He was able to get away, and it ended up being a 7-second win for Musgrave over Kremers and Myers. He really, really just handled everybody on Sunday.
Yeah, it was just pure domination.
Yeah,
from Musgrave and Factory Karts. They can do all the marketing they want. All you really need to do is put up a billboard or a poster of something of just live timing, circle the 7-second gap in a pro shifter field, and that's all you need to do. They just absolutely battered the field on Sunday compared to Kremers and Myers, who is one of the best shifter kart drivers in the world and one of the best shifter kart drivers in the US. So a really, really good run from Billy.
Yeah, and you can point this towards the difference in the engines, but the bottom line is this: the engine was legal. Those engines were legal. Anybody on a Saturday night could have bolted on an SSC, built SSC 175 and been able to race. Now, of course, they're all committed to the KZ program, so you're going to have lots of conversations on what was the right thing to do. We'll see what SCUSA looks at. There's a long time now, a couple of months before we head to Utah for the Spring Nationals, so we'll see if anything comes down the pipe. You mentioned potential balance of performance, BOP. We'll see what happens there. I know that there was a lot of team owners that weren't particularly thrilled in the paddock on Sunday, so we'll see what happens there. But the bottom line is Musgrave continues to dial in that factory kart program. He's essentially locked and loaded with the 125 on the production chassis model, which he's thrilled with. He's 95% production model on his 100 cc and his single speed kart. He's working on a 4-cycle chassis that will essentially be the 100cc kart as well. And as we know, he's working with Jackson Porter on the cadet program as well. So very cool to see an American-made chassis. It's the first time in this iteration of the Pro Tour since 2010 that we've had an American-made chassis win on the Pro Tour. And we saw that back in the days with, Track Magic, CTS, Margay with a win actually as well in Pro Moto Tour competition in the from 98 up to 2005. But in this current iteration, that's the first win by an American chassis. Great job for him. Again, as we said, Kremers was able to best Myers in that battle. And I think another good story was Kyle Wick for GFC Karting and Formula Works. Gearbox failure in qualifying. He goes 16th to 8th in the pre-final, then 8th to 4th in the main, ends up getting by his teammate Jacob Gulick. GFC ends up in 4th and 5th. A really good run for Wick after trouble in qualifying.
Yeah, GFC doing quite a good job between Jacob and Kyle. For those two, obviously, still a bit of work to be done for that chassis to get them further up the grid, but I feel like with that team and those drivers, they'll definitely be able to make that time up and get further up throughout the season.
Yeah, Gary Carlton at the helm. He'll know what to do with that with the setup, whatever it may be. They had good pace. Let's put it that way. But again, you're racing. This is the idea. You're racing against the top drivers in the sport and who have been there for many, many years. The hard charger for International Motorsports was Giorgio Carrera on the Lenzo. Issues in the pre-final. Put him at the tail of the field. He split the difference and went to 8th spot in the championship. Billy Musgrave heading to the Spring Nats of Utah will have a 45-point lead over AJ Myers and Marion Kremers. That's how things shook down. Musgrave, of course, 4th on Saturday and getting the win on Sunday. We'll go now to the KA100 senior category brought to you by Nash Motorsports. This will complete this segment. Go to a break and we'll come back with the 2 junior classes. The headline for KA100 senior: Levy sweeps weekend to take points lead. This was an awesome class, Nate. We're seeing a bunch of new young names kind of coming into the fight, which I think is good. Over the past number of years, we'll get guys that are veteran drivers in KA. You think of the Nicholas Terleckis, the Josh Hotzes, the Brandon Lemkes, right? You get guys that would come in and run this category. A lot of young talent in this program here right now. Aiden Levy, who really kind of put his name on the national map with the success he had at the Winter Series down in Homestead in January and February, came out of the gate strong, ends up qualifying on the pole for the pre-final. That pre-final short race went to Noah Rosser in the GWR Tony Kart. When we went racing, though, the front pack in KA100 Senior, so fun to watch. Frankie Mossman was in there. He led for a time in the CRG for Tesoro Raceworks. Rosser, Colin Lloyd was in the fight as well on the Magic. Finnegan Bailiff for Trinity was right there. The racing for the first half of the Saturday main event was pretty hectic.
Yeah, they all just formed into one big blob of karts pretty much throughout the first half of the race. A lot of different drivers who are on different chassis manufacturers who all come from different backgrounds and all that. So it's nice to see just a lot of diversity up front and not just like in just OTKs up front or just another brand of car. It's just a lot of different chassis manufacturers being represented. So that was good to see with Levy eventually coming out on top in that class after a pushback bumper penalty for Fernando Luque, who moved up from junior that weekend. So unfortunate for him, but Levy eventually taking that win.
Like I said, a lot of guys up front in the middle of the battle. As the kind of things played down to the end, Winter Series champion Peyton Phillips was right in there. Rosser was in there. You mentioned Fernando Luque on the Tony Kart, who has jumped up from junior to senior, and he was one that kind of ruffled a lot of feathers. He was a disruptor, as I wrote in the race report, because he was getting pretty aggressive with a number of drivers. Late race, as everything kind of shook down, different drivers taking their time up front. Mossman, as I'd mentioned, had an engine issue. He went to the sidelines after blowing a motor. But Phillips was leading Aiden Levy, and they had some room. Phillips was running the Tony Kart, Levy on the Alonso for Team Tarp. And they were running 1-2. They were going to be able to essentially run it out to the very end. And Phillips started to go on the defensive a little bit early, and that really kind of brought everybody back in. I think it was like maybe lap with 2 to go, he went on the defensive. Everybody coming back into the fight. They were kind of inside, outside. In the end, Levy ended up coming out of the chaos with a good lead. Probably had 3 or 4 kart lengths going into the final complex. Before you come into the left-hander, it's a 10, 11, 12 kind of chicane S's before you come out of 12 to the start-finish line. He left the door open. And Fernando Luque, who had led it for a time, I believe, ends up throwing it in the inside, gets to the inside. Levy was not happy with himself for leaving the door open. Luque gets through. He ends up coming out and getting the race win, comes across the line with the race win, then tries to do a cool kind of heel clicker and spins in front of everybody, which, definitely didn't look very good at all. But he had a pushback bumper, as you had mentioned. So he ends up going backwards, and Aiden Levy gets the win. Phillips comes home in second. He was not pleased with himself afterwards in the interviews he did with Car Chaser. Couldn't believe that he started on the defense that early. He thought the pack was behind him. Colin Lloyd ends up in the third spot. And then good to see Henry Wheeler on the LN cart roll up there with Jarsakrak and Doty. He ends up fourth, and Josh Campbell for RPM rounding out the top five. Campbell will play into the fight on Sunday. But man, I just thought it was a great battle. Luke K was a little hectic. There's a lot of talk after that, but K100 Senior just does not disappoint.
No, and like you said, Phillips going defensive on that final lap kind of brought everyone back in. Aiden had quite the over-under in the final few complex of corners.
Yeah.
And then the final section where Fernando got past, I don't think it was Aiden intentionally leaving the door open. He didn't get over the second curb into that hairpin very well. If you go and watch the broadcast again and you pause it, you'll see that Fernando is going the right way and Aiden is all worked up, sliding the wrong way and having to correct it.
All right.
So that's what allowed Fernando to come past. But like you said, it was, from a pace side, a good weekend for Luke for trying to get respect from your other drivers for an entire season. Maybe not the best way to start it off.
Not so much.
But yeah, I think he was very candid in, once we get to Sunday, with a bit of a tussle he had, very candid, that we'll talk about in a sec.
Indeed. Hard charger in the opening race of the weekend for K100 Senior was Caden Bell on the LN cart. Started 27th, race his way up to 11th. Good run for him, plus 16. Coming back on Sunday, Levy picked up where he left off. I think he wanted to have a straight win. He ends up qualifying on the pole, wins the pre-final. And to be honest, he made a clean run through the first half of the opening kind of laps. And the battle, as it happened, starts behind him. He got through turn 1 and 2 very cleanly, into 4 and 5. And all of a sudden, everybody started battling. And he actually was able to pull a pretty good lead from the very beginning. Really never looked back, as I recall. The fight then was essentially Josh Campbell versus Noah Rosser. Rosser ran second. Campbell was with him. Campbell actually had a broken, it was left side side pod, the back mount part, the bolt had come out, so it was kind of hanging there. We were worried that potentially it was going to break off and he was going to get the meatball, but he did not. And in the end, it worked out really well. He ends up finishing second, getting by Rosser on the last lap. So Levy wins by 0.6, really unchallenged, as I had said. Campbell and Rosser tried to close in, but weren't able to do it. Campbell finishes second, Rosser in third, Mossman fourth, Braden Robertson fifth. So the two Tesoro CRGs coming home fourth and fifth. Good job for the CRG drivers. But let's jump into that Luke K versus Colin Lloyd. They're not really part of the results here at the end. But, man, they were going at each other like crazy. Luke K drove Lloyd off, I think, in turn 9 at one point. Nate, I'm sure you were out there. You watched it as well. We were covering it. But, man, at one point, Lloyd tried to, literally, I think he had enough of it. He got hit so many times in the back, he kind of drove Luke K to the inside of the track coming out of 9. It was just a lot of chaos to watch, that's for sure.
Yeah, it was Lloyd, yep, was leading a pack going into one of the hairpins. You could see him get all crossed up, and then Luke K go past. Colin essentially looked to his inside. I was like, all right, I'm sick of it. Basically took them both out. They continued racing, though, but after the race, I think Lloyd said, it happened. I'm probably not going to talk to him about it. Fernando saying it's embarrassing for both of us, gotta do better. So I think both of the drivers having a bit of regret for what happened on track, which is good to see. Obviously, you don't want to have that kind of racing on track. And before we do switch subjects, just to say how good of a run it was for Levy. The gap between him and Campbell wasn't 0.6, it was 3.3 seconds in a K100 senior field.
Did he have a pushback then, or did I just screw that up? No, you're right. No, I'm looking at it right now. No, you're right. I just messed it up on the sheet. Yeah, 3.3 seconds. You're right, indeed.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing you can add to that. It's like in a field that is so close. If you look at the gaps from second to, pretty much, a bit of tomfoolery going on in the back of the field, but usually the field is just so close, and to see someone just walk away with it in what is turning out to be a pack racing class by 3.3 seconds is just impressive and speaks volumes about Levy's talent.
And I want to say probably setup wise too, because in the end he was good. Like the both drivers were quickest on lap number 9 in their fastest laps. Campbell was quicker by 400ths. Levy was just, I think, so consistent, was able to pull away. Luque did have the fast lap. And as I looked down, because I wondered if anything happened, Luque, and I don't know how Luque did get a pushback bumper, I think, 925. I think, yeah, he's going to he has a fully pushback bumper from the contact that he had. And actually, Lloyd did receive a 3-second penalty for impeding driving down on the 925. So there was a penalty laid down to Colin Lloyd. Luque with the full 6-second pushback bumper. So again, a lot of contact in that class, a lot more probably than there needed to be. And again, Luque, as Nate, as you had mentioned in the interview, said that he really didn't do a great job. He didn't do right by himself. He didn't do right by his family, his team. So a learning experience for a young driver jumping up to the senior category for the first time. Of course, probably fired up and with the speed he had the pace to potentially win. It's always tough when a junior jumps into senior, because you mentioned it from the beginning, right? You want to gain the respect, but you want to gain it by clean racing, not, hey, give me respect because I have speed. So I think maybe for Luque, had he been able to just settle down, I think he might have had a better overall weekend, but the speed was there, although he's going to have to keep doing his best to try to get the respect from the drivers around him.
Yeah, and the old saying of a racer never forgets. I think a lot of those drivers, the experienced ones in the senior category, aren't going to really forget this weekend when it comes to Utah or Newcastle, when they have a choice of, I can push one guy or the other. Maybe it's not going to be Luque. Maybe he's set himself up for having to redeem himself throughout the season. So maybe not the best way to start it, but on the flip side, he still has his pace to rely on. So I think he'll be just fine.
Yeah, it could be as simple as that, not getting help on the racetrack. The hard charger, actually, when it comes down to the championship, this could be key. The driver finished second on Saturday, Peyton Phillips, had an issue in the pre-final, had to start 19th and drove his way back up to 10th. That result doesn't keep him in the top 3 in the championship standings right now, but a 10th place result, much better than a 19th, set a 9-position improvement for Peyton, getting back up into the top 10. Levy with a perfect weekend, essentially, in terms of winning all but one race. He just did not pace the front of the pre-final on Saturday. He has an 84-point lead over Josh Campbell, Noah Rosser in third. That is the championship standings for KA100 Senior following the WinterNationals. And again, from there, we'll go into our next break in the action. We come back, as I had said before, diving back into the race report brought to you by the Skip Barber Racing School. We'll talk about X30 Junior and KA100 Junior. All over the karting world, everyone knows OTK is the gold standard for quality and performance. In the U.S., OTK USA is the source for all things OTK. From the legendary Tony Kart brand to the race-winning Cosmic and Esprit chassis, and now the new Red Speed and EOS brands, OTK quality is second to none. All 5 brands are winning races and championships across the country in national programs like the Rock Cup USA Florida Winter Tour and the Challenge of the Americas, the SCUSA Pro Tour and Winter Series, and the Pro Kart Challenge, the United States Pro Kart Series, and the WKA Manufacturers Cup. And OTK products are also front and center on the podium of club and regional races from coast to coast. To learn more about a specific product line, you can find the OTK USA dealer near you, whether it's Tony Kart, Cosmic, Esprit, Red Speed, or EOS. Visit www.otkusa.com. Specific chassis territories are still available, so kart shops interested in adding a winning component to their product lineups can contact OTK USA directly. Made in the USA. That's exactly what you get from Precision Karting Technologies. Based in Detroit, Michigan, PKT brings over 35 years of manufacturing experience to the sport of karting. Their passion for the sport began focusing around the Kid Kart platform and has expanded every year with hundreds of products designed to put you on the podium. Precision Karting Technologies is known around North America for their successful line of axles, available in all age groups. PKT manufactures a number of engine products for Comer, IAME, Rock, Rotax, and the popular Briggs & Stratton 206. A wide variety of chassis components for the many brands in the sport are available through PKT, including hubs, pedal risers, skid plates, and other hardware for your kart. Axle straightening, chassis adjustments, engine service, and specific CNC machining projects are available through their Motor City headquarters. To learn more about the many products and services available from Precision Karting Technologies, head to pktaxles.com. Welcome back to this edition of the EKN Debrief. It is episode number 110. My name is Rob Howden, joined by Nate Dean as we were trackside at the Superkarts USA WinterNationals, the opening round of the Pro Tour. Rolling through the race report brought to you by Skip Barber Racing School. And this will be an all-junior section with X30 and KA100. We'll start with X30 Junior, presented by Rawlson Performance Group. And here's the headline: Rivera and Taylor win as RPG dominates the weekend. And really, it was all RPG. Nate, when we were covering this thing and watching it on Kart Chaser, as I was doing the play-by-play with Nate, with Xander and Emery Lida throughout the day, it was all RPG colors up front. And I'm sure you with the camera out there, all the cars looked the same because, man, RPG was just so strong.
Yeah, it was just blue, purple, and silver karts out front for the entire weekend in this,
right?
With the occasional appearance of Stephen Miller. But it was well and truly Rawlson Performance Group's X30 Junior throughout the entire weekend, going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on Saturday, and then having 4 of the 5 on Sunday. It was just utter domination from that camp, as we've seen in the X30 categories between junior and senior in the past couple of years. But really, this has to be one of their best weekends in the junior category.
I think you're right. You're right. Rivera qualifies on pole, wins the pre-final, but led the opening lap on Saturday, and then fell back to 5th. But he worked his way forward, getting by all his teammates, and eventually took the lead from Max Taylor on lap number 19. A little bit of contact coming through turn number 5 as he kind of held on before he turned into the corner. Taylor ended up coming back for 2nd. Jackson Wolney in 3rd, another podium for Jackson Wolney after getting one in the Winter Series as well. Teddy Musella stepped up in a big way throughout the weekend. He was 4th ahead of Diego Ardiles. And again, it was RPG Cosmic 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hard charger was Oliver Weldon. He had an issue in the pre-final and started 11th, up 4 spots into 7th. Well, Sunday, things kind of changed around a little bit. Max Taylor found the speed that he had leading on Saturday and actually qualified on the pole. The pre-final went to Teddy Musella. But as the chaos happened at the start of the race, Nate, on Sunday, it was Max Taylor who was able to pull away and put great laps down and actually gave himself some breathing room.
Yeah, Max having a decent day on Saturday, but finally getting that pace and that win in the junior category for them. A good start for the season for him. Again, I'm not too sure if he's going to be doing full season because he has quite a bit of car racing commitments throughout the year. So we'll see if this is a full-time campaign for him. But again, Ernesto Rivera will be leading points going into Utah now with an RPG first, second, and third, locking out the podium that would be once we go to Vegas. So we could be seeing 3 RPG Cosmics in that top 3 getting trophies when we go to the Super Nationals.
Yeah, there's a lot of good drivers. And again, remember, Rawlson obviously focus so much on driver development. You never know how many of these drivers are going to keep stepping it up throughout the year. Taylor with the win by 0.9 of a second. It was interesting when I interviewed him afterwards. He said how nervous he was over the last 3 or 4 laps, thinking he could win a Pro Tour race. And he has, of course, Rivera beating down in on him, slowly closing in. The margin ended up being just 0.9 of a second for Taylor, but very happy when he was able to get that first victory. Rivera comes home in second, and as Nate had mentioned, obviously taking the point lead, 35 points ahead of Taylor, who had a very strong weekend all told. Musella ends up 3rd in the points, leaving the WinterNationals. Diego Ardiles, once again, he was 5th on Saturday, 4th on Sunday. And finally, Oliver Weldon, who was up there challenging, was able to break out that top 5, 5th position for the young Florida driver. Grayson Greaves, another Florida driver on a Cosmic, was the hard charger, started 20th and raced his way up into 12th. As we go into the KA100 junior category, brought to you by Greyhound Racing Seats, here is the headline. Miller goes back-to-back to start Pro Tour season. Now, if RPG dominated things in the X30 juniors, Stephen Miller essentially dominated things to a certain extent in the KA100 junior class. That said, he never did qualify on the pole during the qualifying sessions, those short 4-lap qualifying sessions, Nate. Victor de Alencar, super fast.
Yeah, he kind of, at least not on my radar, going into the weekend, he definitely impressed for this opening round of the Pro Tour. But yeah, like you said, Stephen Miller has just, thinking back, I mean, he won the Super Nationals after a penalty in KA Junior, and ever since then, with this engine package, he's just been unstoppable with between the Winter Series and other more regional races that he's ran. He's just looked like the best KA Junior driver in the country, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him win a lot of championships in 2023.
And let's just throw this out there. We didn't talk about the fact that on the Saturday race, Aiden Levy actually spun as well. There were times that the wind was blowing up and some dirt was on the racetrack. Levy spun from the lead, I think, in KA 100 Senior. Well, the same things happens to Miller. Stephen Miller ends up spinning early, falls back to 8th. That gave the lead to Weldon. Then he just stormed his way forward, methodically working his way forward, took the lead back from Weldon on lap number 13, and from there was able to kind of walk away to a 1.3 second victory. Very impressive run for Stephen Miller, kind of flexed the muscles there a little bit. Oliver Weldon got that second place finish in the JC Karting LN kart. And Chase Basalia, what a great run for him. Very impressive, his advance through the field. He caught and passed two pairs of drivers who were working together, was able to do over-under moves. I think both of them may have been in turn number 9, and one of them might have been over in turn number 4, but he was able to work his way onto the podium for the first time as well in the GWR Tony Kart. So congratulations to Chase Basalia for third on Saturday. Alex Mercado in the red speed for Speed Concepts Racing was fourth, and Keegan Kaminsky for Formula Works on the GFC rounded out the top 5. Enzo Vidmontien, I think we probably all expect him to potentially battle up front, but he wasn't able to get it done. He did get a hard charger, though, on Saturday. He started all the way back in 32nd, went up 21 spots to move his way into the 11th position. So a great job for Enzo to get back up to 11th. And then we rolled things back out for qualifying Nate again on Sunday. And here comes Victor De Alencar again, qualifies on pole. The raw pace was definitely there in the short run qualifying sessions.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we see this quite a bit in any form of racing. A lot of people are able to have short run pace. Some people are able to have long run pace. Just De Alencar seemed to have that long run pace, but couldn't get through the field as well or as without losing a lot of time, compared to Stephen Miller, who would just slice his way through the field no matter where he was at. And adding to his half spin and win on Saturday, I think that happened on lap 20 or so. So at least I was thinking like, okay, so we're maybe 5 to go. He might catch up. Weldon's been quick this weekend. He's going to have 20 laps to do it. And then on lap 12, just 8 laps later, he's back into the lead, which again, just shows Miller's pace in this category right now.
Yeah, 3.5 seconds to win for Miller on Sunday. Comes back and does it again. Goes back-to-back jacks in that KA 100 junior class. Max Taylor getting a good run as well. He ends up in second. Alex Mercado third. Shea Aldrich, the local driver on the Tony Kart, ends up in fourth. And De Alencar was able to hold on and be part of the action, be part of the top 5 on Sunday with a P5 finish. Sarah Bradley started all the way back in 26th, and she fought her way forward to 10th. So a strong run for the Tony Kart driver for RPM, Sarah Bradley, coming home in the 10th position in the Sunday KA 100 junior race. Miller, no surprise, 118-point lead over Weldon, and then Mercado in third in the championship. 2 rounds down, 4 more to go, a 6-round championship. As we know, Spring Nats and Summer Nats still to come, but Miller, as Nate kind of alluding to, looks like he could be lining himself up for more than one championship here in 2023. Another commercial break. When we get back, we'll have a look at the Masters classes. We'll go KA 100 Master and Master Shifter after this. Top-level production with a focus on a single form of motorsport, karting. This is MG Tires. MG Tires USA, underneath the Vantage Karting Group banner, is the official distributor of the MG Tires brand for the United States. MG Tires are the official spec tire in the U.S. Pro Kart Series, Route 66 Sprint Series, Sunshine State Karting Challenge, and countless clubs across the country. No matter your compound preference, MG Tires USA has you covered. Whether it's the medium SH Red or the soft SM Yellow that you find at many karting events in the U.S., or the super soft green SS and the intermediate white IZ optional compounds, MG Tires USA has your winning set of rubber in stock. Indoor and outdoor rental facilities can now trust MG Tires with their solution to long-lasting and the best performance with 3 different compounds available through the RL line. For more info about MG Tires USA and its extensive list of dealers near you, check out their website at mgtiresusa.com. MG Tires, for the drivers. You can buy all the latest and greatest products on the market, but when you're karting to win, it boils down to one thing: you, the driver. Gain the knowledge and abilities by investing in yourself at the Alan Rudolph Racing Academy, and you'll find those extra tenths of a second you need to put yourself on the podium. The school was established by Superkarts USA Hall of Fame driver Alan Rudolph, with decades of victories and championships in multiple forms of the sport, including other disciplines of racing. The Alan Rudolph Racing Academy, located at the Speed Sports Racing Park in the metropolitan Houston area, is designed to teach driving skills at all levels. The instructors of the Academy have decades of racing experience and educating drivers of all ages. Classes at the Academy will teach the concepts and skills needed both behind the wheel and off the track. From the beginning kart racing experience and intro to karting courses, to their advanced 1-day and 2-day courses and karting clinics, the Alan Rudolph Racing Academy can improve the skills of any driver. For more information on the specific programs that the Alan Rudolph Racing Academy can provide for you, head to speedsports.com and click on the Racing Academy page. Be sure to follow the Academy on social media by searching for Alan Rudolph Racing Academy. Welcome back to the Race Report on this edition of the EKN Debrief. This Race Report brought to you by Skip Barber Racing School. Myself, Rob Howden, joined by Nate Dean. And we're going to work our way through the Masters classes now. We'll go KA100 Master, 8 drivers in total. We were teased with the possibility of having Mike Rawlson run, but he elected not to and kind of focused on the team by the time he got there. But KA100 Master, presented by Aspen Sport Fuel. The headline, Garrido and Barrios split main event wins. And in the end, all told, I think the overriding storyline, Nate, is that Michel Garrido for Alessandro's Racing on the Tony Kart really was the dominant driver all weekend long. The only kind of way that Barrios got the win was an issue for Garrido, I believe on Sunday rather. But Garrido ends up qualifying on pole, wins the pre-final, and then essentially dominates the action on the final on Saturday. There was issues for Barrios, if I'm not mistaken, in both of the pre-final and the final. I think that he had some kind of a mechanical failure, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, both races, pre-final and final, Barrios failed to finish, so we're just kind of robbed of a battle up front for both days because Garrido just absolutely walked away with it on Saturday. Had absolutely no competition, where Sunday it was a bit closer. There wasn't much of a fight, and unfortunately for Michel, getting that win taken away due to a pushback bumper penalty, with Mario taking that win. But still, since he did have such a good day on Saturday, compared to Mario, 95-point lead in the championship going into Utah.
Yeah, 3 of the 8 drivers able to get to the end on Saturday. Michel Garrido with the win. It was 23.4 seconds over Jesus Portillo and Shengyi Wu on the factory kart. Again, rolling into Sunday, Garrido qualified on the pole. Barrios, though, took the pre-final victory, but as Nate had said, a pushback bumper for Garrido after winning the race on track. Barrios gets the win on Sunday. Garrido in second, Iglesias in third. Diego Rodriguez and Portillo rounding out the top 5. And again, as Nate said, a 95-point lead for Garrido in the championship, leaving the WinterNationals. Barrios in second, Iglesias in third. Again, we talked about it from the very beginning that there was 9 drivers in the Master Shifter Kart category. Master Shifter presented by International Motorsports. And here's the headline: Debos and Martins split victories. And we talked about the fact that Garrido was kind of the dominant driver all weekend long. It was the same for Daniel Debos. Even in qualifying, Nate, he was actually, if I'm not mistaken, I think he was quicker than a couple of the, let me jump in here real quick. I think he ended up qualifying quicker, than at least one of the pro drivers as well. So Debos was very fast on the Lenzo kart for International Motorsports. He truly was the driver to beat, all told, in the Master Shifter category all weekend.
Yeah, he's been the driver to be in the Master Shifter category all year. Between the Winter Series and Florida Winter Tour and everything he's run in, he's been up front and challenging for wins. So not much of a surprise to see Debos up there. Obviously, like you said, taking the win on Saturday, was looking good to do it on Sunday, but engine issues, or I'm not quite sure, but he did pull off to the side of the road in a bit of puff of smoke coming out. So you can kind of put two and two together on that one. But
right.
Not the Sunday he would have wanted, but still healthy points lead.
So Debos gets the win by 1.8 seconds on Saturday. Luis Mendez on the Birol Art finishes in second. Andre Martins on the RPG Tony Kart comes home third. Mord Von Tak in the TB Kart. Both TB Kart drivers, Mord Von Tak and Farshad Bagari, finishing fourth and fifth on Saturday. Sunday, Martins was able to come home for the victory in that class. In second spot was Robert Fige, the reigning champion in the category, and then Ken Schilling, who finished 16 laps, ends up in the third spot. Only two drivers actually making it to the end. A number of drivers with issues, as you had said. Bargari and Von Tak did not run on Sunday. So again, back to another quick break. When we get back, we'll hit the cadets. We'll go Mini Swift and Micro Swift after this quick break. Acceleration Kart Racing is your first and only stop on the internet for karts, parts, and the safety gear you need to get you on the track. Visit shopakr.com for a great selection of karting equipment on a user-friendly website. Acceleration Kart Racing has aligned itself with many of the top manufacturers and distributors in the sport to ensure all the latest equipment is available to you, the racer. With over 20 years in business and customer support available 6 days a week, you can be confident about getting the right parts at the right price when you need them. Be sure to visit shopakr.com today or stop by their headquarters in Las Vegas. Make sure to follow Acceleration Kart Racing on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for the latest specials and new arrivals. It all started in 1994 when former successful kart driver Albino Parolin decided to move his passion for karting from the track to his small workshop. That's when Parolin was born. Fast forward 20 years and Parolin's passion for the sport led to the company rejoining international competitions as a factory team in WSK and CIK FIA races, with the aim of enhancing the research and development process, immediately achieving notable results around Europe, North America, and Asia, becoming the CIK FIA Asia Pacific KZ champion in the same year. Parolin USA is North America's source for Parolin products, and we run a factory team at all of the major Superkarts USA and Rock Cup USA events. The Parolin chassis lineup for 2021 includes the Invader Shifter, the Le Mans Tag single-speed chassis for junior and senior classes, and the 28mm mini kart for the cadet classes. Parolin has been winning races all over the world, and it's on top of the podium in the USA as well, with drivers like Kai Sorensen, Mateus Orjuela, and Alessandro De Tullio. Get on the chassis that's winning. Drive a Parolin. For more information, head to ParolinUSA.com. Welcome back to the EKN Radio Network and another edition of our EKN Debrief, where we wrap up our EKN Trackside Live coverage with a podcast race report. We're going to jump in now to the KA100, the Mini Swift category. Let me get back to the right sheet. Mini Swift brought to you by Avinco Tires. This is the race report brought to you by Skip Barber Racing School. Here's the headline for Mini Swift. Biggest class, I think, on the weekend, right? At 542. Yeah, biggest class on the weekend and tremendous racing all weekend long. Here's the headline. Johnson and Murphy win following exciting pack races. Not surprising, Nate, to see Kai Johnson rather up front. This kid, I think, is one of the drivers that we're going to see do extremely well in Mini Swift and any racing he does this year. He qualified on the pole coming out of the gate. Marco Romero, though, stepped things up as the two Bennett drivers from Team Bennett showed a lot of pace. And in fact, they came out of the gate with Tristan Murphy and pulled away in the main event. It looked to me like it was going to be a three-driver battle for the race win at the end of that 20-lapper. But as happens many times, and especially at a track with some tight corners, the minute those top three drivers started racing, everybody came back into the party. Right?
Yeah, with field of this size and the strength of field that we have in it, obviously we're going to have a fair bit of fighting up front and throughout the field. And that's exactly what we saw with Mini Swift. Like you said, a lot of drivers signing up for this one and a lot of drivers signing up very quickly
Yeah,
for it. I think it was one of the first classes to sell out. Same with USPKS for Orlando Kart Center. So
that's great, right? That we've got so many
yeah.
cadets. Like, if you think about it, we had 24 drivers in micro and 42 in mini. We always say that, that the cadet category is obviously the future. Those are the drivers that are going to go to junior, eventually to senior. There were 66 cadet drivers in the paddock at Orlando for the opening round of the SCUSA Pro Tour. And again, it was a breakaway as we expected. Kai Johnson, Tristan Murphy, Marco Romero right in there in the breakaway pack. Ashton Woon was third, kind of hanging out there, or fourth rather, kind of hanging out by himself. He couldn't close, but he wasn't really losing any ground on the drivers behind him. Now, that said, Travis Pettit kind of lined up with everybody behind him, and that was Fionn Shi, Cameron Marcia, Lucas Palacio was in that group as well, and they were slowly closing. And then finally, when they started racing, 3 wide into turn number 9, 3 wide coming out of turn number 5, and that right-left combination, kind of 2 hairpins back to back. Everybody came back in the fight. And as they kind of packed up over in turn number 9, Travis Pettit made the best move. A big, nice over-under when she caught, came out of turn number 9. And it was actually he and Johnson kind of working their way down into the 10, 11, 12 complex. And in the end, Johnson gets the victory. Travis Pettit, his first national podium, running for Trinity Karting Group on that Kart Republic. His dad, Adam, was absolutely thrilled. But Kai Johnson comes home with the win. Pettit in second. And Ashton Woon, who was right there, P4, took full advantage of it. He comes third. Marco Romero and Tristan Murphy, who were lined up to try to go for a race win, Nate didn't even make it to the podium. 4th and 5th for those 2 drivers.
Yeah, unfortunate for them, but still long season ahead for them if they want to make this up on championship points. Obviously, you're going to be wanting to go for race wins, but chin up for them. Long road ahead until we head to the final round at Newcastle.
And Tristan Murphy would come back nicely the next day. Let's be real about that, because he ended up having the fast lap of the race on Saturday. That really played into it on Sunday as well. Kai Johnson qualified on the pole again. Tristan Murphy, though, in that RPM Nitro kart, jumping up there into the win in the pre-final, giving him the pole. And the cool fact was, as the race kind of played out a little bit, a 7-kart battle essentially formed near the end of the race. Everybody was kind of lining up, and it looked like it was good. We knew it was going to be fantastic at the end, but it was actually Murphy and Ashton Woon who were able to pull away to battle it out on the final lap. It ended up being Murphy with the victory by 1.1 seconds. Another podium for Ashton Woon, though. So the only driver to get 2 podiums. He ends up, he'll be 3rd place in points, leaving as well. Fionn Shi was the other driver in the fight, and good for Fionn Shi, onto the podium for the first time in SCUSA competition, Nate.
Yeah, a lot of throughout the paddock and throughout the different podiums, a lot of different drivers getting that breakthrough at a national level, but good for him. Obviously, we talk a lot about, some drivers who are just like barely on that, being able to get onto the podium and like barely being able to fight into that top 5. Then once you do get that first podium, and then especially that first national win, it propels them to a different level, like we saw with Rivera with his win at the SuperNationals over Gaffera. Ever since then, he's just been the dominant force in X30. Same with Miller. We've seen it in both of the junior categories that once you do get that a huge national win like that, you have so much confidence that comes with it, and you just dominate from there forward.
And there's a C word right there. The power of confidence, especially for the young drivers, is just so huge. So again, Tristan Murphy with the win. Woon second. Fionn Shi on the podium in 3rd. Royce Vega ends up in 4th on the Bennick. And Kai Johnson finishes up in the 5th spot. The 2 hard chargers, McLaren Carroll on a Parolin, up 20 positions from 39th to 19th on Saturday. And it was Santiago Namnam, another Parolin driver, up 19 spots on Sunday, started all the way back in 41st. Almost able to split the difference, ends up in 22nd in the final tally. In the end, although he finished 5th and didn't get on the podium on Saturday, the overall success on the entire weekend puts Tristan Murphy as the point leader, leaving the WinterNationals only a 10-point advantage over Kai Johnson and Ashton Woon. Lots of racing still to do in this mini Swift category, so this is going to be fun to watch as we get to the Spring Nationals and the Summer Nats. Moving into the Micro Swift category, very similar. Some great racing up front, some local drivers stepping up as well. Micro Swift category brought to you by Sodi Racing USA. And here's the headline: Matcha sweeps micro mains. And that is incorrect because Davia actually ended up winning, Rob. So I'll change that. So Davia was in there as well. Out of the gate, Nate, qualifying for Saturday, one of the longer names that we have to say throughout the weekend, but a very quick driver, Santiago Diaz De La Vega Torres on the CRG, ended up qualifying on pole, man. And he was in the fight all weekend long for sure. He was kind of outside the top 5 for a majority of the Winter Series, but man, really stepping it up in Orlando.
Yeah, Santiago, one of those really good drivers who are going to see throughout the season do quite well. And when he moves up to mini later on, I'm sure he'll be successful there. At a personal level, a bit of a pain since I only have a certain amount of characters on Twitter to work with. So whenever he's in the top 10 on micro, we have to get a bit creative, but it's a good problem to have for me and for him, obviously doing really well on
I love it.
That CRG, and I think we're going to see big things from him throughout the season.
Maybe we'll have to ask if we can just go Santiago Torres just for that one, just for Twitter, Twitter, right? That's funny. Yeah, because there is only a certain amount of characters. Maxwell Macha, I mentioned the fact that I thought he had my title swept both mains. He did not, but he did win the pre-final. It was actually Juan Garcia Davia who won on the final on Saturday. There was a fantastic lead group throughout the main event. Davia took the lead from Macha on the last lap, was able to get the win. Macha holding on for second. Local driver Gavin Decay coming home in third, and he would factor into the fight all weekend long. He ends up P3. Liam Nakawati, I believe, had the fast lap of the race. Let me scroll over here real quick and get up the micro. I'm pretty sure he was the quickest driver in micro on Saturday. Indeed, yeah, fourth place, fast driver of the race for Nakawati. He ends up in fourth on the Paralympic. Colton Schniegenberg on the Energy ends up in fifth. William Roberts started 23rd and drove 17 spots forward as the hard charger up into sixth. What a drive for William Roberts. Great job for him. Coming into Sunday, though, it was all Maxwell Macha. He qualified on the pole, won the pre-final, and although there was a lot of racing, Nate, he still was able to get the race win.
Yeah. Quite convincingly too for Macha. A good day in the office for him. Didn't watch as much micro as I wanted to throughout the weekend, but Macha just seems like one of those drivers who just seemed very comfortable throughout the weekend.
Yeah.
Didn't seem like there was too much stress from him. Obviously, a bit of a points lead going into Utah for him. 80 points between with him in first, Decay in second. So he has a bit of a gap there, and I think he just seemed a lot more confident and more comfortable in the kart than some of the drivers, at least in what I saw.
Yeah, I would agree. He had obviously had some success, was able to get a race win in the WinterNationals as well, right? Obviously, Pizzonia Nito, Antonio Pizzonia Nito moving up into the mini class after having won the championship in micro at the Winter Series. So Macha, kind of the guy to beat right now in that class, I think, to a certain extent. He got out to the early lead. But Diaz de la Vega Torres and Decay worked together and ended up catching him and then passed on with about 8 laps to go. Decay actually went to the lead at one point. The lead group, then as they started racing, I figured they were going to pull away, but no, the next group came coming. So there was 6 karts in the lead group. Finally, Macha kind of took the lead back away with a good move to the inside. He was trying to pull away with Decay, who was leading, but I think he realized they were coming. So he made the move on the inside in lap 16. There was only 18 laps on Sunday as Scusa had cut 2 laps off all the mains to try to get back onto schedule. So with 2 to go, Macha went to the inside of Decay, took the position, and then really the big gap that he got was because of the fact that everybody really started battling it out for second. Macha at one point pulled away. They kind of made a move to try to get close, and then everybody just started fighting. So really, Macha just pulled away. Like we said, 11 seconds, but it wasn't, they were really close 2 laps in, but over the last couple laps, he was able to stretch away and did a great job. And again, Gavin Decay, third on Saturday, the local driver finishing second on Sunday. Just a great weekend for Gavin. Diaz de la Vega Torres ends up in third to cap off the podium. Nakawati, another 4th place finish. And this time it was Josh Bergman on the Sodi kart who ends up working his way up into the 5th position. So good job for Bergman, a top 5 finish. Colton Schniegenberg, who was 5th on Saturday, started 24th, had to fight his way forward, a 16 position improvement. He goes to 8th position, but not surprising, seeing as the fact that he won the pre-final, was second on Saturday, and then swept Sunday. Maxwell Macha with an 80-point lead over Gavin Decay and Davia to cap off the weekend. All told, a really impressive drive for Macha on the weekend. You mentioned it, Nate. Just seemed really calm, really relaxed. It's always cool to see that in a micro Swift driver. It doesn't bode well for the rest of the field if he's feeling that confident.
No,
Right?
definitely not. I mean, like you said, we talk about the confidence word a lot. You can have a single lap pace, you can have a decent weekend, but if you're the most confident driver in the field and the most determination, then you're a big threat, and that's what Matcha has, along with the pace.
That's it. Yeah. Put it all together, right? All right. One more break in the action, folks. When we get back, we'll wrap things up. We'll look at the Constructors' Championship, and we'll have a look at the EKN Trackside Live Race Calendar. We'll cap things off after this break. Ready to step up your game? Joining the Rawlison Performance Group is the obvious choice to take your racing to the next level. Industry-leading driver development is provided by our staff of multi-time national champions, SuperNationals winners, and Team USA members. And at the same time, RPG continues to be a national-level powerhouse race team. Our goal is to help you raise your game and win races. We work with all age groups and are focused on developing those cadet and junior drivers who are ready to take the next step in their racing program. Rawlison Performance Group has set a new standard with our in-house engine program, AVP Engines, headed by Alex Vincent. AVP has become the benchmark in IAME competition. We have the largest OTK inventory that follows our race team, providing trackside parts at all the major events in North America. RPG also offers multilingual support with French, Spanish, and Portuguese-speaking staff. If you want to fight for championships or want to improve your skills and your chances to win, the answer is to call RPG at 503-260-4514. The Rawlison Performance Group. We race to win. For over 20 years, Greg Bell has been building race-winning power for kart racers. One need only look at his team, Leading Edge Motorsports. He's always built engines for his team, and the results have been wins at the biggest races in America, the SCUSA Supernationals and the Rock Vegas events. The name on this program? Mega Power. This year alone, Bell and Danny Formel teamed up to sweep the Rock Shifter class on the Florida Winter Tour, all on a Mega Power engine. If you want to win shifter kart races, it's time to put Mega Power on your kart. Mega Power specializes in gearbox engines, such as the TMKZ, Rock Shifter, and IAME Shifter, but with almost 3 decades of engine building experience, Bell develops winning motors for X30 and Mini Swift and everything in between. The combination of Greg Bell's engine building skills and his chassis tuning knowledge is a potent mixture. Greg's helped catapult many drivers to wins over the years, including Mercedes F1 star George Russell, who won the Supernats 14 in 2011 with Leading Edge Motorsports. Increase your odds of winning at this year's Rock Vegas or Supernational events or throughout 2023 by calling Greg Bell today at 209-747-2613 to put Mega Power in your corner. Welcome back to the EKN Radio Network. Time to wrap things up for episode number 110 of our EKN Debrief. Started these many years ago after the Supernationals and been a very popular part of our EKN Trackside Live coverage and our podcast program, and of course on the EKN Radio Network. Rob Howden alongside Nate Dean. Let's wrap things up, Nate. We'll kind of buzz our way through some good stuff. First and foremost, perfect weather all weekend. Now, maybe not perfect because it wasn't 75 and sunny. It was 85 to 91 and sunny. It was hot. It was humid, but no rain. And good rate, good for racing. It was hot. It was tough on the drivers, but no rain, which I think was fantastic.
Yeah, no rain at a major national, and between USPCast and SCUSA, we haven't had any rain, so that's good for us. Obviously, with all the time we've spent in Florida at the major national series, it's been kind of a surprise that it hasn't downpoured on us for anything. It will downpour at Utah. Yeah.
Don't say
it will
that.
Downpour at Utah.
It could. It gets windy there sometimes, that's for sure.
Yeah.
One of the words we used beginning on Saturday and really kind of dialed things up, it was the word intensity. It was super intense racing all weekend long. I don't know if it's just because it was the start of the SCUSA Pro Tour. Everybody had been there for so long and they had already been beating on each other in other races, whatever it was. But the racing seemed very intense. And we never, ever want to say it anytime during the race. We kind of wait till the end of the day or the end of the weekend. But no red flags all weekend long, despite some crazy aggressive racing. I was thrilled when we wrapped up the day with no reds.
Yeah, and I think we didn't have any Reds during the Winter Series too. So a good
You might be right.
streak for Scusa there. Yeah.
No doubt. One of the things I think for the championship of the X30 senior class was the issues for Turney and Norberg on Sunday. Not something we normally see, right? We're literally calling the action. All of a sudden, there's an issue for Turney. He's in the barriers. And then there's an issue for Norberg. He's stopped. Man, that really blows things wide open in the championship when two of the primary contenders have one bad day each at the WinterNationals.
And Austin Garrison didn't miss on Sunday for him.
Yeah, you're right, Garrison as well. Last but not least, to wrap things up, and obviously we're going to have to circle back and look at this again. We'll see what happens when it comes. We already know what Stars has done. We'll see what happens with the SCUSA program as well. But brewing controversy and some dissension in the paddock due to the strength of that IAME open spec IAME SSC 175. That's going to be something that will be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah.
All right, let's go into the Constructors' Championship. Interesting. 10 different brands winning. There are times we've seen 4 or 5 brands kind of dominate, but 10 different brands winning over the 18 main events. Cosmic gets 4, not surprising. Rawlson Performance Group being so strong. Formal, Rivera, Taylor, and Barrios, 4 drivers splitting those 4 wins. Kart Republic with 3, with Joe Turney winning, of course, on Saturday, and Stephen Miller sweeping both days. Tony Kart with Martins and Garrido, a couple of Masters wins for the Tony Kart brand. Alonso with Levy getting 2. Davia and Macha sweeping things there for Parolin, getting a couple of wins. Factory Kart with Musgrave, as we said, their first ever Pro Tour win for the Factory Kart program. Morgado stepping up in the last race of the weekend to give one to Bureau Art. Bennick with a win with Kai Johnson. Nitro Kart with Murphy. Debos with Lenzo Kart, I believe. Yeah, it was Debos on a Lenzo Kart, so that was the other one. So yeah, 10 different brands. Nate getting race wins. Cosmic leading the way with 4.
Yeah, you don't really see this many brands on the top step of the podium, but like you said, Cosmic on top with 4. Surprised. Rolson Performance Group is quick. It is cool to see though that 4 different drivers there for
agreed.
RPG between Formal, Rivera, Taylor, Barrios, all getting wins, and just the amount. There wasn't a lot of double ups on wins just between Miller and Levy. Other than that, everyone was just a single. All the chassis manufacturers, just a single win. And
then in Cadet, where we've seen a lot of peril and dominance over the last year and a bit, they get 2 with Davia and Macha, as I said, but Nitro Kart gets 1 and Bennett gets 1 as well. So again, the 3 primary, I think, Cadet chassis all getting a victory there. So tremendous job for everybody involved there. All right, let's wrap things up. EKN Trackside Live Race Calendar, this time presented by DID Chain. Powered by technology, DID Racing Chains have a worldwide reputation for superior quality and reliability. With a rich racing tradition where race results speak for themselves, DID prides itself on engineering the most technologically advanced chains on the market to help you excel both on and off the track. DID's SDH pin treatment creates an extremely hard chromium carbide layer on the pin surface that houses a soft inner core to absorb extreme shock loads. DID's 219 HTZ racing chain boasts this SDH pin technology, which leads to a longer chain life, as well as excellent energy transmission to the wheels. Pick up a DID chain at your local dealer today, because when winning is the only thing that matters, go with DID. All right, we'll wrap things up here. EKN Trackside Live Race Calendar, a couple of events lined up here for the month of April. April 12th, 13th, and 14th, the full EKN Trackside Live program. Myself, Rob Howden, and David Cole will be heading to Sonoma Raceway for the final rounds of this year's Challenge of the Americas. And then we'll wrap it all up for the month as David will be heading to the USPKS Texas Grand Prix, his first trip, and the USPKS's first trip to Speed Sports Racing Park in Houston, Texas. That's the end of the month, April 27th to the 30th. Couple of big races. Challenge wrapping up, USPKS going to their second round. And I think, based on what we're hearing, good numbers for Challenge of the Americas, some exciting stuff to focus on with the OKN class. I think they're going to probably get a couple more racers in there. They've got a bounty on the head of Blake Nash, which should be exciting. But I think they're going to see some big numbers again, Nate, for USPKS, their first run to Speed Sports. People are really going to enjoy that racetrack.
Yeah, and interesting stat that David brought up a podcast or 2 ago. This is USPKS's first race west of the Mississippi, so moving into that market. But registration for USPKS and their Texas Grand Prix at Speed Sports is open as of a week ago. like we saw at SCUSA, no pushback bumpers required for the pro shifter category for them.
Yeah.
So there's some change there. But the USPKS has a lot of hype and momentum, especially in the past couple of years. And this should be a really big event, not only for them, but for speed sports as they start to put their name on more and more national calendars.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Great to see Alan Rudolph and the whole family down there at Speed Sports Racing Park finally getting that big national event that they've been hoping for. It's a fantastic facility, and they're going to be shoehorning everybody in there because it's going to be a big race. But if they can do it at OKC, they can do it at Speed Sports. Looking forward to seeing what David does when he's down there trackside for that. But he and I, again, like I said, a couple of weeks away, we'll be heading west to the Challenge of the Americas. That'll be the next event on the EKN Trackside Live race calendar. That does wrap things up for our coverage here from the Superkarts USA WinterNationals, the opening round of the Pro Tour at the Orlando Kart Center. It was a great time to be down there with everybody, hanging out with the guys from Kart Chaser as well with the live coverage. We do thank all of those of you who dropped us notes and like the coverage that we brought in, of course, with the race report. Nate doing everything on social media throughout the weekend, all the reels, you name it. We do appreciate all the kind words. Thank you so much, folks. We're going to wrap things up here from the EKN studios in Cambridge, Ontario, and Minnesota as well. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in. On behalf of Nate Dean, my name's Rob Howden. Bye for now.